I talked about developing these videos, and that was kind of step one. But what we also did is we actually turned those into training modules where we incorporated interactive knowledge checks within there. So it's not just, you're watching, a couple minutes of a video and then you do a couple knowledge checks, you watch another couple minutes and just trying to help with retention and stuff there.
So welcome everybody to today's episode of the Swine Canada podcast. My name is Dan Columbus and I will be your host for today's episode. And with me today, I have Mark Fynn, who is Training Resources Coordinator at Canadian Pork Council. And I'll let him talk about his other roles and titles when he introduces himself. So, but welcome, Mark, to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dan. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So, Mark, just because some people might not be aware of who you are, I'll just ask you to kind of introduce yourself and give a little bit of background into your journey so far.
Sure. Sounds good. Yeah. So I joined Manitoba Pork on staff back in 2010. So I've been around for a little while. Right now for Manitoba Pork, I act as the Director of Quality Assurance and Animal Care Programs. But I started getting contracted with Canadian Pork Council back in late 2019. And they brought me in to work specifically on developing training resources for pork producers, recognizing there would be obviously some benefits to having some standardized training created across the country. And so that's kind of how I got brought into this.
Swine Veterinary Partners offers a full range of animal health and production services to Canadian pork producers. We approach health management through personalized solution with concern for profitability while taking into account performance and the well-being of your animals.
Yeah, so I mean, you mentioned the kind of the topic of today's episode, which is the creation of those resources and what they are. So I guess we'll jump right into it with basically, you kind of said, you got brought in to do this, but I'm just wondering a little bit more of the background of how this kind of got started and up and running, and what was the goal, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. A little bit of background, I guess. I with Manitoba Pork, we developed some pig handling training. Now this is dating back to probably like 2013, 2014 or something like that. So we started developing that training, and then other provinces were developing some different training materials as well, whether it be video or other resources. I started recognizing that we were seeing some duplication of efforts, I would say, right? So started having a conversation within Canadian Pork Council as well as with some of the other provinces about the option or the opportunity to develop some national resources so that we could save time and money and not duplicate efforts. And so that's kind of where it started. So we put in an application to the Canadian Agricultural Partnership funding at the federal level to cover a bunch of training resources. And so we ended up running that project, just finished in March, but for 3.5 years. And so I was actually contracted for about 70% of my time with Canadian Pork Council. So was able to commit quite a bit of time to developing these resources. And so, we set up a committee at the Canadian Pork Council level that involved a number of different people from across Canada to sort of look at what the priorities for training resources were. And so had a bunch of different things that we ended up developing, but the primary thing was actually videos. So anyways, we cover a number of different topics, I guess, on that. And so the main objective was to develop all that sort of stuff. And so, there's a bunch of benefits, I guess, to that. So, yeah.
So you mentioned, a lot of the different provinces were already kind of doing this. So, when creating this committee, what is the composition of that committee? Are the different provinces still on board, or who are the partners on this?
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess I should say, like, when the provinces are developing stuff, like a number of us were kind of, including me at Manitoba Pork, we're developing this stuff off the corner of our desk, right? Like as small projects came up, we do a little bit and stuff, but we realized there was a whole bunch of stuff we could actually develop if someone actually committed the time to it. And that's really where this got born. So As far as the committee at the national level, what we ended up doing is trying to pick out people that were kind of involved in developing training in the past, and put together that committee. So we made sure we had representation from each of the provinces. We got veterinarians sitting on the committee, we got producers sitting on that committee, and we have staff from the provincial pork organizations. And I'm probably missing some, but set up that committee to really prioritize things and kind of give the final stamp of approval. The truth of the matter is we covered like 10 or so different topics, and there'd be, anywhere between say 5 and, I can't remember the top number was 13 different videos per topic or something like that. And every time we had a different topic area, we'd have to set up a different working group that provided expertise in that area specifically. Even though we had that one committee at the top level setting the priorities and doing the final approvals, we had a whole lot of other people working on working groups underneath that to get these things developed.
Yeah. So you mentioned, a number of different topics. So I guess we can delve into giving a little bit more specifics, like what were those topics that you kind of focused on, and how did that process look, when you started going through and actually making these videos? Like, how did you go about that?
Yeah, I mean, again, it started at the committee, that committee level. We call it the Training Review Committee at the Canadian Pork Council, and so we ended up developing, I guess, these resources in basically 3 different phases. And so the first phase, we prioritized, for example, biosecurity. We said, okay, let's develop some biosecurity resources, and so we ended up developing 12 different videos on different aspects of biosecurity on farm. Through that. And like I said, we set up a topic-specific working group that specializes in biosecurity. So including, veterinarians, again, producers, and other people that provide speciality to that across the country. I think that was kind of one of the big benefits of doing like a cross-Canada approach to this too, because I think even when we were developing resources before at the provincial level, we'd pull in our, the expertise we had within the province, but didn't necessarily reach across the country for people that were maybe, had more involvement in those topic areas. So I thought that brought a lot of benefit too, because I think we really brought in the best experts from across the country and weren't, handcuffed to just people from within our province.
I guess so. Biosecurity was one of the issues. I guess, like, what are the other types of topics that you kind of identified with that? So, what would be available with regards to the training?
Sure. So, some of the other topics we covered, like we've got a suite of videos on group sow housing. We did some stuff that kind of matched up with the Pig Safe, Pig Care programs. And so we, like for animal-based measures that we do when we look at condition of animals on farm during that, we wanted to provide some clarity around that. Other stuff on just operating barns, like just basic, like what you expect to sort of cover if you're managing a grow finish area, or if you're managing a nursery barn, if you're managing an on-farm feed mill. Like, we covered a whole bunch of topic areas in that, as well as like touching on some stuff related to handling and storage of veterinary products, preparing animals for transport. Covered a whole bunch of different topic areas, and like I said, set up different working groups to deal with each of those topic areas. So
I'm actually wondering too, because this spans across the country, and we tend to compartmentalize, the provinces and stuff like that. But I'm wondering, like, once you started getting these people together and discussing the issues and what they had been addressing, like, were the issues that were like priority different depending on what area of the country or where that expert was coming from, or was it kind of all very similar across the whole industry?
Yeah, I mean, the videos when we looked at developing them, or any of the resources, what we're trying to develop is like, training on best management practices across the country, right? And so, when we have the conversations within those working groups, like there can be different opinions, I guess, on what the best management practice is, and I can think of like maybe a couple scenarios where we almost had to generalize what was shown in the training more because there wasn't a national consensus. But I'd say probably 98% of the material that we ended up developing, we landed on a consensus on one specific way to do things. And so I'm really confident, I guess, based on the experts that we had involved and being able to reach consensus on it, that, at least at the time that we finished doing the videos, that was the best management practice across the country. And I've said to a number of people, a pig in Alberta is the same as a pig in Quebec. So what.
We say that all the time, but sometimes it doesn't seem like industry looks at it that way, right? Where it's no, we're in Ontario, no, we're in Alberta, not to, and don't take anything about picking those two provinces. They're just east and west, but
yeah.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. So I guess too, because you were trying to, maybe generalize in some ways for certain things. So when you were identifying maybe where to go and do that video, was there a set of criteria that a facility needed to have to be considered for that, or how was that decision made?
Well, honestly, one of the kind of limiting steps was the availability of people being able to actually develop the videos and the production, right? And so we kind of created a network across a country of different organizations that have been involved in developing training for pork producers in the past. And so Prairie Swine Center is one of them. CDPQ would be another in Quebec, EQSP in Quebec as well. So we have different organizations that have done this sort of stuff before, but you can only handle a certain amount of work at the same time, right? And so my role in this was I was involved, I guess, in all of the working groups. I helped organize and coordinate the working groups and hold the meetings to discuss what goes into these things. But a lot of it was just project management stuff. I was just, coordinating, I guess, with the different organizations, developing the training and providing that and making sure that, we're juggling a whole bunch of balls in the air at the same time and making sure none of those kind of fall. And so, I'll tell you, after 3.5 years on the project, I was happy to have a little bit of a break after that. So still trying to manage my core role at Manitoba Pork as well. So
that's a long time. That's PhD level project type thing, right? For level of commitment. But
it's funny. I feel like I got thrown in the deep end with project management, which is good. I've got whatever. It's been a fun challenge, and getting to work with so many different people across the country. We have a really good team of people across the country, and some great organizations to work with. And so it's been a pleasure in that way, and it's been a fun challenge. But yeah, I don't mind a little bit of rest too.
Yeah, I'm sure. We've been focusing a lot on the video aspect of the training, but you did mention that there were other resources and formats that you had worked on and developed too. So maybe let's just discuss, a little bit of what are the other resources that are part of this?
Yeah, sounds good. I guess some of the other stuff we have, we did a bunch of stuff on humane transport, which kind of, aligned with the changes to the health of animals regulations at the federal level. So saw that was one of the phase 1 priorities, because it had kind of just been just come into effect in early 2020. We knew about the stuff early 2019. So anyways, it was a top priority, I guess, to get that sort of stuff done. And so we developed a series of fact sheets, I guess, on what the new regulations require for animal transport. We developed a stocking density calculator on the CPC website. So it would be kind of those sorts of things involved. To be honest, because of time constraints kind of going later into the project, like phase 2 and phase 3, we kind of backed off doing some more of the written or the fact sheet sort of stuff a little bit, and kind of focused very heavily on the videos. And that was just a time constraint thing in the end. But yeah, a number of different things available. And when we've kind of got stuff ready to release or whatever, we can show a kind of a catalog of things that are available that were done through the project. So
yeah. So I was going to ask you if it's available now. I guess you answered that question. So I guess once it's made available, I guess, where are people going to be able to find this?
Yeah. I mean, there's some stuff that's like available already through the CPC website. So like all the stuff on that humane transport stuff you can find through the CPC website. I mean, the best resource for like producers and other stakeholders that are looking for the stuff is really talking to your provincial pork organization, because they have that kind of access. But the big thing that we're really doing at the moment is I talk about these videos, and I talked about developing these videos, and that was kind of step one. But what we also did is we actually turned those into training modules, where we incorporated interactive knowledge checks within there. So it's not just, you're watching, a couple minutes of a video and then you do a couple knowledge checks, you watch another couple minutes, and just trying to help with retention and stuff there. The other thing that we did through those training modules is we recognized that English isn't the first language, or English and French aren't necessarily the first language of everyone across the country. And so we've got all those training modules have subtitles in Spanish, in Tagalog, like Filipino, and Ukrainian as well. So to really try and reach out to all the different, people in our workforce that we have across the country. So anyways, long story short, we developed all these training modules now, and there's 86 different ones in the different languages and stuff. And we're getting them put up onto an online training platform. It's called a learning management system, or LMS. And we're basically just getting ready to launch that. And so some of the other benefits of that is that for an employee or whoever else, or the person taking the training, it'll actually track your training. It'll track your progress. It'll allow people to assign training to you if they think, hey, this is the priority things that we want you to cover at the moment, or, how it aligns with your training in barn. They can do those sorts of things and then have a rolling, basically, CV of your training done or whatever through that. The other thing too is that we're setting it up in a way that, like, a company or like a producer or something who wants to train their employees, they could upload their own SOPs or something like into that platform, and then train them on the SOPs and actually track it through the platform. So it's not just what we produced at Canadian Pork Council. It could be what an employee or whatever wants to train people on, and just have a rolling kind of CV. I mean, I see it as a way of building building the professionalism in the industry, and in tracking our training a little bit better. Like, people are still getting training on farm, obviously, and doing it, but it's really getting that tracking down to be able to prove to people, the amount of knowledge and skills or whatever that go into working in a barn. So.
Well, yeah, and a little bit more formal, and something, because this is national, that that person could then take it to probably multiple positions if they're going across, and more people will recognize it for what it is, right? Like,
yeah,
than just, oh yeah, I worked in this barn and got training of what I needed to at the time, and there's no record of it or anything. No, I think it's,
and I mean, like, when you think about like the other professions and the continuing education or CE credits and stuff that people are involved in, I mean, there's other potential uses, I guess, of this online training tracking system, this LMS, and someone comes along to let's say, pork seminar or something, we could set it up to track that they've attended those sessions or something like that, to kind of prove that they're doing continuous education to improve their knowledge and how it's applied in the barns. So.
Would there be an opportunity? And maybe I don't know, because I don't have to worry about continuing education credits, but would this training count towards that, or is it just that this would be a way to track what you do in addition to that?
I mean, it'd be to track that. I mean, we don't have a formally recognized CE credit requirement necessarily. Like, I'm thinking, right. I'm a professional agrologist, for example, and we do have requirements for CE credits and stuff like that. But I just think it's a good way to demonstrate your professionalism in general, or whatever, to show that you've done this training. And so, I'm not saying it's just like I said, not just the Canadian Pork Council training. There's a whole bunch of different training we could have on there to kind of have this rolling CV, and then an individual could show that or whatever as a way to kind of up their standing as well in the pork sector. So. Yeah,
no, definitely. I think it's a benefit. I've been hearing Ken talk about this for probably 3.5 years, I guess. And so that's why I was like, okay, let's get you on and talk about this, let people know that it's coming up, and hopefully we can get the message out there and get people involved in taking advantage of this.
Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah, it's been a lot of work. I'm really looking forward to launching the platform. I think it's going to be enjoyable. Like we've tried to really kind of gamify it a little bit with how we've done the interactive knowledge checks and stuff, and we're developing that into an app so people can just use it on the phone and do it offline if they want. They could do it on a computer online if they want. So try to make it as accessible as possible to people, and present it in a fun way that you actually want to do the training and not, just feel like you're obligated to. So I look forward to demonstrating it, and I'm thinking that we'll probably be showing up to a few of the pork sector events, like seminars and stuff like that, early in the new year, and kind of showing some of this stuff off on tablets and stuff to just get people oriented. But the main administrators really for us are going to be the provincial pork organizations, though. So that's really the best place for people to go to if they're kind of interested in getting on board. So.
Yeah, I guess the last two questions I have would be, is there a cost to this for the producers or the trainees? And I get when are you expecting it to launch?
Yeah, there will be a cost involved. What we're trying to do, Canadian Pork Council is trying to do, is they're trying to be able to charge a cost so that we're able to maintain a sustainable training development program, basically, and so that we can produce like a new series of training videos every year, or update ones if there's the best management practice changes over time based on research and all that sort of stuff. So anyways, we're trying to create something kind of sustainable on there. And so, the talks now are we're looking at charging about $50 per user for like a 12-month subscription onto it, which is, it's a fraction of what you'd be looking at paying if you were to look at other commercial options for this sort of thing. And so, and really that's just to cover the cost of continuing to develop more training so that we can continue to be useful kind of in the long term. So, and as far as a launch goes, I'm hoping that I can start talking with some of the provincial pork organizations even later in this year, definitely by January, to get them familiar with it and comfortable with it so that they can go on and provide the advice, I guess, to their producers and be able to give them access. But we're looking kind of late winter probably is when we can start onboarding producers. So
yeah, so people can keep a lookout for it and hopefully get in on it when it finally gets out there. So before we get to our other three questions, I'll give the opportunity for a take-home message that you want people to get from this episode.
Yeah, I think, the availability of training obviously is a key take-home message, but one of the things I'm kind of most proud of about this, this whole project and doing this, is just the collaborative nature that we have across our pork sector in Canada and the people we've had involved. I think we developed some really high quality resources for people. And I think it's because we're able to collaborate across the country and have so many different organizations and individuals and producers and other experts involved in this. So I'm confident, I guess, in the quality of this work. Based on how many people we had involved in their expertise. And so I'm looking forward to birthing this and getting it out into the hands of producers. So.
No, like you said, I think it's a great project, lots of people involved, and it shows what happens when the industry all comes together, and can create something. So, no, that's great.
It's time for our famous three.
So before I let you go, we have the three questions that we ask all our guests. So our first one is your favorite swine-related resource. And I think I'm going to you can't use these videos because I think that's obvious. So I'm going to force you to pick something else.
I don't often give myself a pat on the back. So, but no, this is going to be kind of a lame response, Dan. But honestly, the biggest resource is actually just the team of people we have across the country. I lean on people heavily, and I had good relationships with people across the country. But we have a good and progressive pork sector and great people that work in it. And so I lean very heavily on people all the time. So
I don't think that's lame at all. And you're not the first one to say that. I think when we ask about resource, people automatically think book or something like that, right? But we tend to forget that the people around us have the information too, right? So, I think that's a great answer. So The next question is then, outside of ag or swine, what would be a book that you would recommend or like a favorite that you have?
Oh, you said book, but in the question you asked me before, it said resource as well. Because what I was going to
Oh,
say,
sorry,
no,
it could
you're
be
good, you're
resource
good.
then too. Yeah.
No, I was going to say I'm a big fan of travel, so Google Flights is probably a resource I lean on pretty heavily most of the time. Not always
Well,
career related,
okay,
but
there we go. That's like another one where we tend to think of the book, but I think
yeah,
that's good. We haven't had that before, where somebody gives a website or something like that
yeah.
for figuring things out. I didn't even know about that existed.
Oh, yeah. It's a handy resource if you want to look across multiple airlines for getting to a destination. So
Well, in Canada, that's Air Canada or WestJet. So
yeah, yeah, true.
but no, good. Good recommendation. So,
Yeah.
our last one, and I think maybe you've had good opportunity over the last 3 years to see this, but obviously over your career as well. When you think back at leaders or pork producers who are particularly successful or good at what they do, like what is a characteristic that you kind of identified that sets them apart from the ones that might not be as successful?
Yeah, I mean, the thing I think of immediately is the ability to like listen. Basically, is listening to the people around you and stuff, and kind of the willingness to change your perspective based on what you hear from other people and stuff. I find if someone gets caught in their own way and are unwilling to kind of adapt or whatever, and you get caught in that, and I don't think that's a beneficial quality as a leader. So really listening and being able to change.
Yeah, that one comes up a lot.
Yeah.
So obviously,
Yeah.
need to do a little bit more listening, I think, sometimes, and less talking. So
Yeah.
it's always a good one. So, well, that brings us to the end. I'll thank you again for coming on and talking about this. I wanted to have you on for a while because I knew that this was coming up, and I think it's good to get out there. So, hopefully you enjoyed coming on and doing the episode. And maybe we'll have you on again once it launches, and we can get some feedback on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for having me, Dan. No, I like the opportunity to be able to talk about this stuff, and like I said, I just can't wait until it's ready to go. So
Yeah, well, we're all looking forward to it. So thanks again.
okay, thanks.